Hi, everyone. I'm Craig Gordon, Vice President of Prevail, and I'm joined by our President, Andrew Stafford.
Good to be here.
You know, there's a lot going on right now in the world, a lot of headlines. I think there's a lot of uncertainty here with a lot of individuals. One of the areas that I think is important to talk about is the increase in the U.S. debt. And, you know, recently there's been a lot of conversations here, I think, trying to create assurances in the bond market that the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. dollar and T-bills and everything are still sound. But again, there seems to be now a discourse and a conversation that could lead to some uncertainty in that area. Yeah. What is the Investment Advisor Committee? What are we talking about? How are we managing this?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up debt in particular, because after Jamie Dimon kind of came out and said, hey, there's potential cracks in the bond market coming, and he's not the only one. First of all, he's one of the smartest individuals out there. He's an incredible business person, but he's a protagonist in nature, and a lot of times he's very negative, specifically when he gives his talking points, which maybe that's how he gets his reactions. That being said, we looked at all of the bond holdings that we have. We looked at, what is the duration, what is the risk, what is the credit quality of them. And what was great out of it is of everything we looked at, we were positioned extremely well. We made two changes to bring down some duration and credit quality. But as you think about debt in particular, specifically the U.S. debt, you know, the U.S. dollar's fallen a little out of favor right now. There's always chatter out there about the fall of the U.S. dollar.
Right, it's no longer going to have its dominance.
Global currency. I think that's a really challenging thing to happen. First of all, I've learned in this business to never say never, but we still are the dominant force moving forward. That being said, this is really the first time that we're having politicians take a stand to try to reduce the deficit. Regardless of political affiliation, both sides have kind of thrown caution to the wind as it relates to not only the debt ceiling, but deficit spending. And so now we're getting a little bit of a wake-up call, and I think that is causing some of the tension in the markets to say, okay, now if the politicians are starting to worry about it, maybe we really should worry about it too. Again, looking historically, trying to project out 3, 4, 5, 10 years is really challenging. It's hard in our business, and imagine running something the size of the government. I think the key takeaway is we do have to get a more balanced budget. We do have to get spending down. We do have to get more fiscally responsible. Now, does that mean that this budget should pass, and can they make corrections after that? You know, there's a lot smarter people out there to be able to make that determination. What I do think is critical, and is critical to the markets and the debt, is they do need to extend the tax cuts. And if we revert back to previous tax codes, that's significant challenges to small business, flow through entities, individuals. That being said, they cannot spend forever. Right. And so do I think that the U.S. is at risk of losing its global currency status? I don't. Do I think that we're being challenged a little bit now in the bond markets as far as the appetite for U.S. treasuries? I think that is probably more emotional in nature. It's also maybe a stance against some of the policies we've taken against other countries right now with tariffs.
Sure.
That being said, I think all things rebound, and I would predict that while U.S. currency is down right now, it may be a time to look at that here in the next month or two, because I do believe the U.S. dollar will rebound, and I do believe the appetite for U.S. debt will go back. The real question is, where else are you going to go?
Right. And I'm like you. I'm always going to bet on the U.S. I think, to your point, it is good that we're having the conversation.
It is.
I'm glad that our legislature is having the conversation and our leaders are having the conversation, because to your point, it can't keep running at the rate that it's running, and at some point we got to probably be a little bit more fiscally responsible.
Absolutely.